Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. As you all know by now, we recorded these a few months ago, so we might be making references, particularly in this episode, to shows that we were watching at the time that we're no longer watching, so you can kind of play the game of placing this when it was recorded. But stick around until the end of the episode for some more up-to-date plugs and announcements. Otherwise, let's get into it.
Live from Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. It's Thursday night on the internet.
Hello and welcome to Chats, the television podcast, season
10.
Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. My name is Alan. And how can someone so smart and beautiful be so consistently wrong and dumb? It's Magellan.
You only want to be my co-host because you feel bad for me.
Yeah, that's basically it. I noticed you were pregnant and I figured, well, I've been sober
That's the only reason that you've watched so many TV shows with me.
Yeah, why would you spend half a decade with someone if you didn't like them?
Yeah.
I don't know if that sentence tracks. Regardless, hi Magellan, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome to the show.
This week we are also joined by our stalwart co-host, the person whose acts of cruelty are often disguised as cuteness. It's Six.
Yeah, okay. I have no objection.
Yes. I knew I found the right one for you this time.
Yeah.
I feel like Studio 60 has given me the most difficulty finding good names for you two, but this week I think I nailed it. Me personally, like to me, I think I nailed it.
You've been on a real to me kick lately.
Yeah, when I find a phrase that works, Six, like Chad or whatever, I just can't stop. I'm like,
It's too bad that I don't edit this podcast, or I could, really beat it out of you.
Yeah, you could beat it out of me. This week, we watched more Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and we're going to get right into it, folks, because we watched a two-parter. Holy
we loved
crud.
every minute of it. It was the best.
A dose-parter.
Well, okay, two of us watched a two-parter. One of us watched half of a two-parter.
Okay, so I was messaging the group DM repeatedly as I watched the Harriet dinner part 1, and I was doing a lot of complaining because I was not having a good time.
That's fair.
And the idea was put forward that wouldn't it be funny if I didn't watch the second episode and y'all tried to explain it to me and I tried to guess what would happen. And I was like, well, sure.
Yes.
I mean, you twist my arm. Why don't you? I don't have to watch the second episode of this bad show.
So I think we can start there, right? Why don't we, we can at least talk about the first half, I think, and then we can get into
I'll give the breakdown for part 1.
Part 2.
I'll give the breakdown for part 1, and then we can kind of see where you think each of these different plot lines goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is part 1 of the two-parter called The Harriet Dinner. Of course, teleplay by Aaron Sorkin. Story credits by Eli Addy. Directed by Timothy Busfield. Oh, that's why. Cal directed this one. Look at that. And it originally aired January 29th, 2007. Magellan, what happened in The Harriet Dinner part 1?
In this episode, Danny and Jordan are locked on the roof of the theater while other members of the cast and staff attend a dinner honoring Harriet, whose relationship with Matt begins to unravel. It's a liberal use of the word begins.
Begins, yeah.
I say continues in earnest to unravel.
So since we're not so that we don't just summarize, I'll come in right at the top and say that I thought these were fine. I think it's actually kind of smart that Six didn't watch both though, because you really I feel like you could have added 1 or 2 more scenes to the end of part 1 and had a solid conclusion. But a lot of part 2 just feels like we're rehashing things. And there's some good moments in there. If you care about the Matt and Harriet romance, which I don't. If you care about the Danny and Jordan stuff, then I don't. If you care about the Kim and Tom stuff, which I kind of do because Jack Rudolph's in it, then you're in for a good time. But we have 5 major plot lines, the classic Sorkin 5, the 5-act structure, 5 plots.
Is that a classic Sorkin thing?
I mean, I've read his books, man. This is what he does. He does 5 plots, and that's the episode.
Okay. Good book.
We've got the Jack, Tom, Kim, and her father plot line. We've got Darius and Simon, which is short but unsatisfying. We've got Matt and Harriet. Short but sour. We've got Matthew and Harriet. We've got Danny and Jordan, and we've got Cal and his animal friends.
Yeah.
But John, which one do you want to talk about first?
Oh, it's so hard to choose. Do you want?
Can you guess which one made me the angriest?
Oh, fun game. Okay.
That's a fun game.
It was a good race. It was a good race this week. It was close.
Tough choice, actually. Okay, well, the one that's the most fun is Cal with the animals, right?
That's true.
Yes,
no one
That's
can
I
be
agree.
mad at that.
actually pretty fun and funny, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So good job, Mr. Sorkin.
Mr. Busfield.
Mr. Yeah. I'm gonna say that the one that bothered you the most, Six, was
And
I'm
remember,
gonna say it
we
was-
only watched the first episode, so didn't get the the
Oh.
conclusion to all any of these.
then I'm gonna say it was Darius and Simon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. That sucked so bad.
Because if you watched all of it, you would have hate. That one gets
If you
worse,
watched
but
all
you
of it,
would have
said
definitely.
Matt and Harriet, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Darius and Simon, because that one occupies the least amount of episode time, because Aaron Sorkin is a coward and doesn't know how to hire black writers. Once again, we have conflict between our friends Darius and Simon, because we are finally coming back to the Fruit of the Loom sketch for no reason this episode. I don't know. We're finally shooting it and putting it on air, which is what's happening. And Simon is playing the militant Fruit of the Loom member, which is a sketch that wouldn't make it today, obviously. I actually watched, this is probably going to be my chat sim for this week, but I just want to shout out a YouTube video I watched about the neoliberalism of Saturday Night Live, and how it's like comfort with prioritizing capitalism over people is why it's so bad right now. It's like one of the major reasons. Is that it'll always go for stuff like letting Donald Trump host episodes because it does ratings instead of like not helping him win an election. And the neoliberalism of Studio 60 is like, at the end of the day, being a writer is more important than being black, is kind of where this plot line goes. So Darius continues to be mad at Simon and is getting angrier and angrier at him. It's kind of boiling as everything else is going on around them. And eventually he said, Simon's telling him, you have to sit down, you have to listen to me, call me sir, do all the things that make you a good junior writer. And also, fucking write. Because none of your sketches are getting aired. How can you call yourself a writer if it seems like you don't even like writing? Mm-hmm. I think one of the connecting threads is a lot of these plot lines are about people telling other people like what your actual motivations are. Mm-hmm. And Darius is rightfully frustrated because he feels like he doesn't want to be the black writer in the group. He wants to be able to get his own sketches that he feels personally attached to that aren't about race. And Simon is like, no. Basically, they have all these moments back and forth, and it ends with him saying, "You need they kind of have this they reference like roots a lot, and he's calling him Kunta Kinte, and he's calling him all this stuff. But basically, all Simon wants to tell him ultimately is, you need to prioritize doing your work over the color of your skin, because no one else is going to acknowledge that. No one else is going to. It's weird. I'm having trouble like nailing down what they're trying to say here.
It's very confused because they're not at all consistent in it, right? Because like, especially the way this plotline kicks off for this episode is because Matt comes in with a bunch of letters from listeners from viewers.
Wow,
and gives one to everyone, and like, oh man, Matt, you're so hot. And then one of them's like, the one he gives to Darius is racist hate mail that Simon got. And so it's like, yeah, that's right, Simon experiences racism. It's like, yeah, no shit. I mean, like,
shit.
that means something, but you can't like hand that to the black writer and have him be like, oh no, racism. Like,
whoa,
it's his fucking life.
Yeah, right.
And then when he goes to Simon, like, first off is just like, oh yeah, I had Matt give you this piece of hate mail, but no, we can't talk. Go sit down after calling me sir, which is completely asinine. And then, yeah, it's just like, if your message is like, it's not about race, it's about your job, then why did you start off by making it specifically about race? Like, also, this is all undercut by the fact that the skit is painfully, viciously, lethally unfunny.
Yeah, so
bad.
bad. So bad. When they're reading lines from it in costume, and it's so like, yes, I am a militant black guy, and this is what I believe, and that's my whole thing. But sir, but what about this? It's so just like, here's the premise of
Black
this
character written by a
thing.
white man also. Like, even within
Right.
the show.
Right. And everybody's just doing it in such a wooden, like, was this bad kind of way. But I agree. I think the thing that bothered me the most about the Darius Simon thing is the sort of inherent assumption that this would be hashed out between them with anger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that feels like it really, to Six's point, Simon being so grumpy and like, come here, talk to me, but I don't want to talk to you. And they kind of chase circles around each other between the two episodes, being mad and refusing to talk more. And Darius like whips his glasses off and glares at, and it's like, it's kind of being written as if these guys are both discovering that they're black for the first time. And also they're both like really mad at each other. And I do think that it's an interesting and compelling disagreement that they're having. And it's in my U.S. history class, when I teach about the Harlem Renaissance, there's like an echo of it here, because you've got people in the Harlem Renaissance, like there's this poet, County Cullen, who basically writes like, I'm not a Negro poet. I'm a poet. I also happen to be black, and that might show up in my poems, but like, I'm a poet, and maybe I want to write something about a flower, and I'm going to do that. And then you have people like Langston Hughes, who are like, when I hear people say that they're a poet and not a Negro poet, what I hear them say is that they're ashamed of who they are. And like, you have and I'm putting words in both of their mouths, I'm paraphrasing here, but Langston Hughes would say, like, you have a responsibility to a certain extent to tell stories that only you understand, and you've reached a certain point that maybe people who look like you haven't been able to reach. And so like, that comes with something, and that's kind of the argument that's happening between them. But I don't think that it's like executed very well, and the fact that it's shunted off as like the D plot is bothersome.
And it also like runs contrary to how they've established these characters, because like Simon, like I referenced this last time, but like Simon, we had the whole talk with him talking to Matt being like, hey, I'm not just the black comedian, right?
Yeah.
And then also Darius, our introduction to Darius was him doing like exclusively like black stand-up, right? Like specifically those kinds of jokes.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make sense either for Simon to be like, hey, you have to make black jokes, or what are you doing? And it does make perfect sense for Darius to be like, hey, I finally am at a place where people will pay attention to me even if I'm not making the black jokes, so let me try some other types of humor first.
Right.
And the show is just so clearly not on Darius's side in a way that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and there's so much to be explored in like, there's also a difference between Simon and Darius expressing solidarity with each other and working together versus them together writing the black sketch, you know? Like there could be this conversation about like Simon being like, hey, I had that idea for a sketch and I wanted to work with you. What's the deal? And that feels like a more nuanced thing. Or you could also go the way of like Darius saying, yeah, Simon, it's kind of like, I don't want to just be known as the black guy, but also like that sketch idea was really forwarding bad stereotypes that I think are not good. So that's also why I chose not to.
It really, I mean, I assumed from what I saw, but you are reinforcing through what you said that part 2 wasn't going to have the payoff I wanted, where finally push comes to shove, Darius snaps and says, "Simon, I pushed it off because it's not funny."
No, right.
They don't go there. What do you think happens with Darius and Simon?
I think Darius realizes how hard it is to be a black star and is like, "Man, I was wrong about all this. I'm sorry I had such an attitude."
Yep.
So pretty much,
Yep,
he doesn't literally apologize, but they have this very awkward scene where they're sitting in the writer's room thinking that there's asbestos in the studio, and Simon's yelling at him, and they're yelling back and forth, and he's like, "No, we're gonna fight." Like, he takes off his jacket, he's like, "We're gonna fight." Simon's like, "Fucking stop! Like, just sit down and listen." And he's like, "Yeah, you need to stop doing that. You need to be a writer. I want to see your name on credits. Just like, your place and stay in it, please." And then he like kind of realizes like, yeah, I'm putting my my politics or whatever you want to call it over like just being a successful writer, and that's like costing me work. So I'm sorry, and like sits down.
There was one interesting thing from Simon in that scene where he tells Darius that Darius is obsessed with white people, which is like, okay, Sorkin, you're kind of getting at doing like an internalized racism story, but you're gilding it with all these weird moments where Simon is calling Darius an Uncle Thomas, and it's like, do people really use the phrase Uncle Tom anymore, or is that just sort of like a literary way of expressing this thing? And it's just so clear that
it's the way that Aaron Sorkin writes about black folks.
Right.
He calls him the pool boy at the house of Uncle Thomas. Because he says if you're going to keep being obsessed with white people, then you're just going to be the person in the corner who keeps complaining about it and no one's going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And everyone else is going to go be successful and you're going to be the pool boy, which is also fraught. I just think ultimately, no matter how much Darius Simon stuff we get, no matter how hard they try to make this nuanced and good, we are still coming at it from a very clearly white perspective of like, why are they talking about race so much? Like, why can't they just write good sketches? That's what equality is. And that is the political angle of this that frustrates me so much, especially, and I know it's 2007, but that's not an excuse to like not, write these characters well. It's really not hard to just ask a person who's black, like, hey, can you consult on this? I'll pay you. Like, you deserve, I shouldn't write this plot.
Right.
Or don't write it at all. Like, don't put it in the show then. Like, the fact that it gets past all of these, like, checkpoints to get onto the episode that's already like chock full of other plots that are relevant is like weird. And when we get the final like sort of montage at the end of like what everyone's doing, I really don't think the show even attempts to criticize the fact that you are. So we're like, just to spoil a teensy bit of the end of part 2 for U6. It ends on like a montage of everyone ending their plots, basically.
Sure, the two-parters tend to do that for Sorkin.
Yes, correct. And like, Matt and Harriet are over here, like talking about stuff, and these Jordan and this guy and Danny are kissing or whatever. Like they're all dealing with like, human affairs like that.
You spoiled that. That was a big.
Well, you got to expect that that's going to go there.
Come on, but we wanted 6 to guess. Come on.
But we'll talk about how we get there. There's a lot of crud that gets you there. Okay. And then you just have Darius. Yeah, you just have Darius and Simon at work. And they don't criticize the fact that, like, we just pan the camera upwards from all these rich white people being like, oh, I love you so much. Like, I finally convinced you to love me. And then these two dudes are just working. They're enjoying it, but they're working. And I'm like, they're the ones doing the work. The show doesn't care. It makes me so frustrated. Like, it frustrates me so much, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not the person to talk about this either. And I know that. I'm acknowledging that. But it's just, you can't look at this. You can't look at this and tell me this isn't bad. Holy moly. In an episode that's already a mess.
Yeah. Well, and I think it does feel like Sorkin talked to someone who was black and got some kind of story or idea, or maybe, I don't know, because there really are germs in it of like this. If this was from a show from the perspective of Darius, as Studio 60 should be, this would definitely be like a recurring theme or a plot or whatever, but just not executed in quite this way. But then did he have someone look at his rough draft? I don't know if Sorkin does that really.
The fact that he gives himself story credit makes me think he does not.
Yeah.
instead of just writing credit.
He has actors look at his rough draft to speak it out into a camera.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think D.L. Hughley and I don't remember the name of the guy who plays Darius, but I think they both do a pretty good job with what they're given.
Totally.
And I know that I was saying that it's frustrating that they're like angry throughout the plot, but I think that D.L. Hughley injects it with a sort of warmth and like fraternal energy that salvages it and that makes the ending moment feel like, okay, this feels like it's good for Darius in the end, even if the race politics of this are fraught and the plot is not well laid out and the themes are not that well done. Their sort of their bond feels legit, which I think is due to the work that the actors put into it, and that feels important and worth recognizing.
Yes, Columbus Short, by the way, is the actor who plays Darius.
Columbus Short. That's what happened to the statue in Boston, huh?
Ba-dum-bum. Good. Let's move on past a plot to a plot that makes me slightly less angry.
Okay. Should we just go up the stair by stair up
Climb the ladder?
Most angry to least angry?
I think so. I want to end on Cal and the Animals because it does cap the episode too. But we have Jack, Tom, Kim, and her father continuing the Macau plot line.
Wouldn't you say you get angrier at the other ones, though? This feels like it should be the second to last.
This one, I when it started, I was boiling. In part one, I was just like, this is the worst.
Right.
Yeah, in part one, this is worse. I extremely see the possibility that Matt and Harriet in part two seizes the lead in heroic fashion.
Yeah.
But in part one, it is definitely this.
This one zooms past all the bad stuff and gets somewhere I genuinely liked. But you have to get through endless uncomfortable scenes in part one of Kim being drunk and flirting with Tom, and I wanted to die after all of them because she's 20 and they keep talking about like, oh, I think you're really cute, but you're 20 and you're drunk and I need to get you somewhere better. It's just, I mean, it's uncomfortable for a reason. It's supposed to be, but the way that they like, I don't know, sexualize Kim as a character and are like talking about her flirting with Tom in this really awkward way, it doesn't exactly remind me of like the times I've seen people be uncomfortably drunk before, and I wish it was a little bit more delicate, but this is not a delicate show.
And also all the stuff with Tom working up to it is just so I mean, it's the most like I know that Aaron Sorkin is, and I use this as an insult, a man's man, right?
Yep.
But like the part where like Matt pulls Tom aside and he's like, listen, if you just tell her that you've been told to do something for your job, she'll think it's suspicious. So you've got to lie your ass off in a really improbable way that'll get you caught, and that'll work. It's just the most like
so stupid that he didn't just tell her what was happening.
It does, and it's like it's not stupid in a way that's believable for the character. It's just complete nonsense.
Yeah, it's just manufactured to have a moment where Lucy's like, "Oh, Tom, well, that's shitty of you." And it's like, if he just said, okay, you know, Jack Rudolph, how he's really scary. He scared me into doing something that I don't want to do. So now I got to
just tell her. It takes him like 2 seconds to eventually just be like, hey, here's what's going on.
Or even, I mean, like, I know this is not what they wanted, right? But like, honestly, in Tom's position, I'd be like, hey, I know this isn't the date you were looking for, and I want to have the date you're looking for. I could really use your help with this situation and get her on board with it. And then it's like a bonding thing where you're working together.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah,
so
that'd be better.
We could write a better Studio 60. Let's work on it in the interim.
First, you drop the 0, so it's just Studio 6.
And then... We should have just named that. We should have named
star.
Studio 6 on SunsetChatz. Your studio. Anyways. So, yeah, basically what's happening here is that Tom is instructed by Jack Rudolph to take Kim to the state and convince her not to do improv and to instead continue playing the viola.
The viola, which I used to play. to sing.
Yes, shout-outs.
Shout-outs.
Which I always call Viola because of the character from Zone of the Enders, because I'm a cartoon.
You are a cartoon. And
Guess you're just
he
not, cultured
eventually
in the,
takes her.
in the
He
fine
takes
arts,
her to.
the Baroque arts. Go ahead.
I can mute myself, guys.
Could you?
Yeah, so he tells him to do that. He goes to the Harriet dinner, the titular Harriet dinner, which is the sort of nexus of all the drama here. And Kim gets really drunk, and she wants to flirt with Tom. She wants to get in bed with Tom. Clearly, he doesn't want to. She drinks too much. I think that's where we leave episode 1 at.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Majan? Or 6?
Yeah, I think that's
Well,
right.
and what's her name shows up?
Oh, you see Lucy show up.
Lucy.
Right.
I wanted to call her Lizzie for some reason. Yes.
We're watching just to pull back the time curtain, the time paradox curtain. John are currently partway through Pride and Prejudice, and I recently learned that the actress who plays Lucy was also Charlotte's sister on Pride and Prejudice 95, which is really cool. Fun little connection. Chat's connection.
That's a fun connection.
So she comes in. What do you think is the ending of this plot, Six? Where do you think this goes?
I know where I want it to go.
Okay, well, give us that, and we'll tell you
Okay.
if it is that.
I want it to be like, Kim ditches Tom because she's too drunk, and then Lucy is holding her hair as she throws up in the bathroom, and they have a moment. But we're not going to get
that.
that.
Would have been so much better.
Oh,
but you can't have two women in a scene together. Come on.
You're right.
No, that's
you're right.
illegal.
Come
Well,
on.
okay, what really happens is Tom's like, listen, I just need you to pretend you're gonna quit the viola and you can do comedy on the side to make your dad happy.
Honestly, Tom kind of does nothing to help Jack Rudolph at all. Honestly, he turns out to be useless. He kind of tries to be like, hey, you got a good thing going. And she's like, it's really stressful. And I've been doing it since I was 4 years or 3 years old.
She says some bananas line like, I slept in a cemetery overnight to get strong. And it's like, excuse me? What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, and Tom's like, why would you have to get strong for the viola? And she's like, I don't know.
I just want to be better.
Yeah, so Tom ultimately does nothing. What ends up happening is she gets, well, do you want to guess again, Six?
I got nothing, dog.
Okay, so what happens is she gets so drunk that she passes out. And then
Simon makes jokes about Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, and she breaks her funny bone and she can't make jokes anymore.
Oh no!
Yeah,
no,
right,
worse.
right. And the series is over. Everyone breaks their funny bone. No, actually, she breaks hers, and then everyone's like, "Don't worry, we've all broken our funny bones."
We haven't been funny for a while. Aaron Sorkin wrote us,
and that's when it turns into a zombie show.
Yeah, boy,
it's pretty good. Yeah, she's passed out, and Tom's freaking out. He's like, "Oh my god!" Her dad calls in the middle of her being passed out, and he answers, and then her dad's speaking.
The first time he calls, they hang up, which is hilarious.
Tom's like, it's your dad.
Simon's like, hang up. And it's like, that's worse.
Yeah. And
Just
then they go and they get Jack Rudolph. Yeah. And Jack Rudolph is like...
the hero of this plot?
What'd you say?
I said he's the hero of this plot.
Well, yeah, he is. He's too comfortable knowing exactly what to do with a woman who is blackout drunk. I'm just going to say that. Like, he moves with a swiftness and a self-assurance that
he's
shows
like layered
that
down on her stomach. You can make, who knows how to make a whatever.
Yeah.
What's the drink called? I wrote it down.
It's like a hangover cure.
Like a prairie oyster? Or?
Yes,
prairie oyster. Yes, correct. Exactly right. And he's like, who knows how to make a prairie oyster so that we can have Simon go, I know how to make one. And it's like, why? And he's like, yeah, I have all the... They're like, where are we going to get the ingredients? He's like, I have them all in my room. And they're like, why? Why are you... He's a celebrity. He drinks a lot. It's fine.
Yeah. So then it turns into a like one-on-one thing between Jack Rudolph and Kim.
Tom.
Because
with Kim, yeah.
Tom and Simon get called away for other reasons. And then they kind of are having like a heart-to-heart, and she's like, what do you need from my dad?
He says a Hail Mary, and she's like, what's a Hail Mary? And he's like, it's when you throw the ball and you just kind of pray. And she's like, how often does it work? And he's like, never.
And then Jack ends up calling her dad in. Her dad and her mom show up. And then we have this scene. So then the whole Tom and Lucy thing happens, which we can talk about in a second. And then Tom comes into the room to be like, wait, Jack, wait. If we give her a prairie oyster, this girl's going to get drunker than hell. She's going to die or whatever. And he turns around, her dad's there. Uh-oh. Hey, sir. Tom gets kicked
in
out
our
of the
language. In our language, so drunk, she's a drunk idiot means it's a compliment.
Right. Then the mom takes Kim out of the room and is berating her. And then we find out that actually the dad can speak English. Did you see that come in 6?
He's been able to speak English this entire time. He just thinks it's funny that when people don't think that
Here,
he does.
I have the exchange.
Hit me with it, bud.
So Jack Rudolph says, you speak English. And then he says, I speak a few words. Jack says, how many words? He says, all of them.
All of them?
Jack says, why do you pretend you can't? And he says, it's fun. And then Jack gets like really mad at him and like yells at him and stuff and is like, you're stressing your daughter out. Stop doing that. And then somehow this wins his respect. And he's like, I'll help you do the thing, get a good lawyer, and like, let's do it. Which it didn't.
The deal is on, basically. I think my one problem with this plot line is the way that it portrays like Asian family dynamics is really like heightened and kind of stereotypical.
Yes.
Where like the mom comes in yelling in Chinese and Mandarin and Kim like walks outside respectfully and they go out and he's like, don't be too hot. And like Jack Rudolph's like, don't be too hard. He's like, I was going to say don't be too hard on her. And then Mr. Kim is like, she's going to be, because that's how Asian moms be, y'all. And then the whole like, I work so hard to be the best viola player of all time. Yeah. I sleep in a cemetery overnight. I slept in a cemetery as a kid. It's like, you guys are just doing the like making your child study hard immigrant thing. Mm-hmm. And as somebody who is the child of an immigrant who wasn't like exposed to that, but knows plenty of people that were or raised like that, it's like, guys, there's so much more nuance to that relationship that there and like positive aspects to it that to just be like, oh, you guys don't get it. You're raising your daughter wrong. Because what Jack suggests is like, she's going to go to Juilliard, but let her have a semester where she does improv. Let her pretend she can have fun with improv and then make her do her hard work. That's the American, that's the Western way to raise your kid. It's like, oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it is.
I hate to beat the like Sorkin racist drum, but it just keeps coming up and I just keep noticing it and it does bum me out.
It's like you got blind spots, dude.
Yeah.
Get people to fill your blind spots. Get other voices in the room.
It's so easy. Before we transition to the next plot, I want to mention that in watching both of these, the new version of this show that I've had the last couple of weeks features the previews for the next episodes. As well as like the end of the NBC bumper of like, next is your local news followed by Late Night with Jay Leno. And y'all, the previews really paint a fascinating picture of what NBC tried to sell this show as.
What did they
I can show you some of them sometime, John, but it basically is like, it leans way more into the comedy and kind of makes it seem like a family sitcom or something where it's like, and then on a very serious Studio 60, and it's like, Jack's like, I'm going to get a gun. Like, like just snipping out the parts of it that make it look way more exciting than it is.
Yeah.
And making it seem like it's another wacky part of our like sitcom lineup. It's Studio 60 on the Sunset. And it's like, that is not the show at all.
Yeah. What a hard show to sell on primetime.
Especially on a network, as I learned in reading about this, because in part 1, we have Masioka introducing the Studio 60 episode. And he's talking about heroes, and they have the whole like, wait, are you the time traveler or the teleporty one? And I'm like, wait, Studio 60 is on NBC. Heroes is on NBC at the same time, by the way. And so is SNL. Right. Like, what is this? What is NBC in 2007 that they're like, and so is 30 Rock? Just the most snake eating its own tail, Ouroboros like network where they're like, we got shows, we got sketch comedy, we got parodies of sketch comedy, and we've got parodies of the parodies. Fuck you, it's NBC.
So we're gonna send 30 Rock in after SNL Because SNL ate Studio 60.
Yes. And then Studio 60 is the one that has to die so that 30 Rock can live for
It's sort of
whatever 11 seasons.
I don't know if either of you have seen any of the show Unreal. Have either of you seen that show?
Negative.
I have not.
Okay, so Unreal is a show that essentially is about like the people who create a show that's like The Bachelor, but it's sort of like I don't remember what channel it's on, but it's like a way over the top.
It's on Lifetime.
Lifetime, yeah. So it's like a way over the top dramatic, like, oh, behind the scenes there's drugs and sex and like people planning to murder people, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, usual things.
But it is also doing things to show you like, hey, this is what's kind of like flawed and fucked up about this particular brand of reality TV show. And there has to be something in the middle between Studio 60, which has no interest in really like interacting with the fact that it's about a sketch show at all. And there has to be some middle ground between that and this like searing over the top melodramatic thing where you can have a show that's like, hey, this is about the creation of a comedy show, a live comedy show. And here are the ins and outs. Here are the like seedy parts of it. Here's what makes it hard. Here's what makes it beautiful.
Yeah.
And Studio 60 like isn't really
not even close to being about that. I think the closest thing to that is the Cal plotline, which I don't want to burn right now, but it's the closest to like the weird, constant, permanent stress of working on like a stage show. Mm-hmm. It's just like things are going wrong, and then the solutions causing more problems. That's accurate.
That, and I think if the Darius Simon plot had been handled better, that also would have.
Yeah, good point.
Could have fit in that show. But this stuff with like all of the Jack Rudolph, Macau, Kim stuff is like just silly. Doesn't fit in this show that it should be. In that plot, by the way, we didn't talk about the resolution of Lucy and Tom.
Oh yeah.
But it sucks. It's really dumb. Basically, Tom doesn't really apologize.
Cool.
He doesn't really give her, he kind of apologizes, but he doesn't ever fully tell her what's going on. He just basically says like, hey, I wasn't there with her. I'm not lying. And then she's like, well, you didn't think I was going to be there at the dinner. Did you? And he's like, well, yeah,
you're not. You're
of course
a
not.
writer.
You're too low on the totem pole. You're too low on the pay scale. Which sucks. And then he's like, see, if I were going to lie about anything right now, it would have been that. So you know that I'm not lying, which is like high octane, horrific, like emotional abuser manipulation. That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. It sucks. It sucks. It's like, Tom, just tell her literally what happened.
Yikes.
Oh,
and
God, that
he
was
finally
so
does, and
gross.
she's like, it's okay. And then she tries to take control of the situation because he's like, can I take you on a date on Saturday? She's like, no. And he's like, damn, that's fair, but okay, at least we talked about it. And then that should be the way the scene ends. But instead, she's like, you can take me on a date on Sunday. Shut up! Good TV show. No, wonderful TV show. Okay. Do you want to talk about Magellan? Do you want to talk about Matt and Harriet next or Danny and Jordan next? Because I have like no notes about both of these, but I know you like both. I know you like at least Matt and Harriet.
No, not in this. I like where Danny and Jordan goes. Because
okay, so
finally Danny is redeemed.
Is he? Okay.
Well, if you forget what happened last episode, then it's cool.
So what you're saying is, in isolation, he does a decent thing, which is not the same thing as saying redeemed.
Correct. Yeah, okay. I guess you're right.
He's temporarily redeemed. So Danny and Jordan are stuck on the roof because as all of the Cal stuff is going on, why do they even go to the roof?
Because it's too noisy downstairs, and they just need a quiet spot to talk for a minute.
Yeah,
because they were doing work on Danny's office, which I actually thought was great. I
just
really
the guys
like
painting.
Yeah, I really like that he like couldn't be in his office and he was like anxious standing around because people were doing stuff in there. Anything that's like real life, mundane. Oh, the guys are painting in there, so we got to find another spot. I actually thought it was because you know that the way that Sorkin is writing it is like, okay, I want them to get locked on the roof together. How do I get them on the roof? I know people are painting Danny's office, and it's a pretty savvy little solution that felt organic. So I like that.
Yeah, Sorkin loves, and a lot of TV writers love the like isolate two characters in a space thing.
Yeah.
I actually feel like this one didn't get a ton of time in both of these episodes. It kind of got more in the second one, but in the first one, it's mostly them trying to just get off, and then it's in the second one where they're like, we should talk about our feelings.
Yeah.
And like do the plot of this storyline. So I'm trying to think again what happens in part one of this.
Basically, they just get locked up on the roof, and they're like, somebody get us out of here. Come on. What's up? And then Six, do they start talking about like
Jordan says the thing about like you're just in love with me because you're just saying you're in love with me because you feel sorry for me for getting pregnant. Basically.
So it gets more complicated than that.
And he says the thing about how she's stupid.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the line that Yep.
Yeah.
Bad line, but okay. Danny's supposed to be a bad, kind of a flawed person here. I didn't want to just say he's a bad guy.
Prediction. All right, it's prediction time. They hash everything out, and they end up at a happy spot, and right when everything gets resolved, the door pops open, and it's like, oh wow, is that a it's, in fact, I think it's gonna be a thing where Danny's like, and one of those like the things Sorkin loves to do where it's like act of God almost, like he used to play, like he did with the power in the previous episode. I bet it's like that.
That's not a bad guess. It's close, but not quite what happens.
Okay, what we got?
So what ends up happening is they're stuck on the roof for a little while. The second episode starts with them trying to get the attention of a man who's sleeping either in the dumpster or near the dumpster.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like stupid jokes where Danny is making fun of Jordan for trying to be delicate about what to call the homeless guy. And then he's like, oh, he's just like, dwelling challenged or whatever. And it's like, Danny, stop it.
Bad.
Don't do that. Then they try to throw a rock to get his attention. And then they realize that
the rock had the spare key in it.
There's a spare key under the rock.
I liked that part. I did laugh out loud at that.
Yeah, and Jordan was like, why didn't you say something? And she had just said that she used to do field hockey. So Danny was like, I was trying to get past the image of you playing field hockey, which is like a stupid line, but I kind of thought it was funny. So they're stuck up there for a while longer. Danny is insisting. He's like, no, I love you. She's like, well, how do you know you love me? When did you start loving me? He's like, I don't know. You don't just like pick a moment and start loving someone. He's like very defensive about it. And she was like, you hated me at first. How can you say you loved me the whole time? And then we get to what Jordan really seems to be anxious about, which is like, okay, maybe this was in the first episode actually, but the thing that she's anxious about is you say you like me now, even if that's true, if you get bored of this in a couple years, you're a dad at that point and you're going to leave me and a kid. And I don't want to submit a kid to that or take a risk on, a dude who's just like head over heels for me and trying to win something or prove something, which is totally fair. Danny is showing himself to be like obsessive in a way that doesn't really feel like he is listening to her feelings. He, at the beginning of the episode, is like, I'm going to stop doing all the creepy stuff that I've been doing for months, which I guess is cool, but you were doing creepy stuff for months, so that's not that good. And then there's a moment where Jordan shows Danny that she knows how to do magic, which is...
That's cute. Because that comes back in a cute way.
Yeah. And
it comes back in a Deus Ex Machina way. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah. So she does this thing where she basically does a trick where she slips a piece of paper under Danny's watch, and he's like not impressed. He doesn't think it's cool at all. Then they're on the roof, and Danny goes near the door for some reason. Oh, he's going to slip a note
he wants
under
to
the
slide
door.
a letter under the door.
And the exact moment that he does that, Cal comes up to the roof and whacks him in the head with the door. So there's your act of God, 6.
Okay, sure.
Because Cal's coming up to turn off the electricity so that they can. Well, we'll talk about that in the Cal plot. And then Jordan leaves she shakes Danny's hand and leaves the roof. And Danny's yelling at Cal. He's like, this is going to cost so much money. And then he checks his watch and there's a piece of paper there. And he opens
What's the piece of paper say?
Yeah, 6, what does the piece of paper say?
I love you too.
Yeah, you're basically right.
Pretty
it
much.
says I'm crazy about you or something.
No, yeah,
like that.
even cornier. It says I'm crazy about you in all caps with an exclamation point.
Yeah.
I'm
And
crazy about you.
He runs to find her. He says, Jordan!
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 And then he finds her and they talk and then he's like, blah, 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 and then they kiss. And then they keep kissing and then they kiss for the rest of the episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no. I just think that them acknowledging that, like, okay, like the whole thing about, you're 10 months sober and you're doing the thing where you're trying to make big life changes. I think it's a really, prescient point. I think that, like, drug addiction is one of the very, very few sort of archetype plots that Sorkin kind of does well, is understanding the way that people can be self-destructive even after rehab, even after recovery, whatever. And how she's like, that's a really bad thing that you're doing. You shouldn't say, like, that's going to be bad if we ever have a kid and you try to, like, raise my kid with me. And he doesn't have the moment where he's like, I promise you I'll be good. Like, I love you and it matters to me. Instead, he's like, yeah, but I still like you. Like, I'm not going to be able to stop liking you. And that's it. So if that works out, it works out. If not, sorry. Bye. Okay. And then she's the one who puts the ball in his court and she's like, yeah, I actually like you too. That's fine. Let's do it anyways. Like, it just doesn't feel like they're, like, working through. I think their relationship is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But it does kind of feel like they jumped to, like, okay, fine, it works. It's fine.
But I mean, like, how much could you trust if he was like, no, you're right. Okay, I'm serious about this and this is going to last. Like, you can't. That doesn't mean anything. I think it's better at least for him to acknowledge, like, yeah, you may be right. I feel like I'm serious about this, but, maybe you're right about all this, so let's be careful. But not too careful, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, the way that he phrases it, and he's like, do we have dinner anywhere in there? Like, let's just take it step by step, which I think is good. Something that I wasn't conscious of during the episode, but that is important to remember about this ending moment between them, is that even though Jordan is trying to be, like, the voice of reason, Jordan has shown herself to be a pretty impulsive character.
The start of the first episode is her acting, like, cartoonishly, like, upsettingly catty and unprofessional, where she's just she's in a meeting with the director of alternate programming and just saying the shittiest things she can think of every time she can, and it's just like she would be sued out of her position.
Yep.
Yeah, she's very unprofessional, and she has been for a lot of the show. Honestly, she's either, like, unreasonably competent or improbably incompetent. They really don't know how to, like, just make her be a good.
Right. It's like I feel like Sorkin, like, is doing the thing that the misogynist side of him, which is most of him, is like, well, she's a woman, so she's emotional and she gets obsessed with things and she's flighty. Flighty. But then it's like, oh, but I need people to understand that she, despite being a woman, she's really competent. So he gives her episodes of hyper competence that also feel weird because there's no meshing there.
Yeah.
Right. I do actually think.
Just on the note of the alternative programmings thing from that first episode, what is it that Sorkin is trying to skewer? Is it like Jerry Springer? Is that what he's riffing on here? When it's like, oh, this person, like, the mom's going to show up, but they're not, they hate each other or whatever. What is the real life thing that Sorkin is so grumpy at and thinks is that ridiculous?
He's secretly hoping that someone will hear this and be like, that sounds great. Can you make this show for us?
Can you make that show instead? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is that I actually I'm starting to at least be a little bit more invested in Danny and Jordan than I am in Harriet and Matt, because even though Harriet and Matt feels more directly like this is what people in Hollywood deal with, this is the kind of relationship drama that they have, the other one feels a little bit more human and relatable. Like Danny and Jordan feels like people I could theoretically know in my life, whereas Harriet and Matt's stuff is like, yeah, this like dating your director stuff and talking about like sex with other people. Like some of it works, most of it doesn't. To me. And that's another check on the box. So let's talk about that real briefly. Basically, she's at the Harriet dinner for herself, Harriet, and she has Matt with her. They're supposed to have, I think, Jordan or Danny is supposed to talk at the.
Jordan is.
Jordan's supposed to talk at the dinner, but she's stuck on the roof. So Matt is tasked with talking on the roof, talking at the dinner. So he's hastily preparing a speech. Meanwhile, the two of them are breaking down their relationship with each other. In episode 1/6, I believe, is when we got that extended scene of her on the set of the movie. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that?
It was painful.
It's like painful, like in a way that you're supposed to feel like this director is gross. The way he's like over sexualizing her, because it looks like the way that they film movies, or at least like these type of documentaries where they're talking about, can we get a POV shot of her camera? We need to get her putting makeup on him because that's an important thing about Keith Richards, like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Luke is a gross man. It just seems to me like a gross man in the way that he kind of like ogles Harriet and wants to like control her in a way. But when talking to Matt, she mentions something that Luke told her, which is like, this Matt guy, like you said you broke up with him, but you're not, like you're still seeing him every day and you're still thinking about him and talking about him and you don't feel comfortable dating other people. Isn't that basically a relationship?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says basically the breakup has just become a condition of the relationship rather than ending the relationship, which feels like a thing that happens to people. That I think is actually a pretty astute analysis of what's going on. And it feels intentional that Sorkin is like, hey, this guy is like really smarmy, but also he's right. And that it's hard to parse those two things because it's convenient for Luke that this is true, but also it is true. You know,
yeah.
So that aspect of it, like Luke's relationship with Harriet, where he's trying to get with her and he's being very obvious about it. And he's also trying to like talk in her ear about her relationship with Matt. That all feels real and complicated in the way that should feel. And then adding the layer that like she used to go out with him before, further, makes it feel like a real complex thing. And then she ends up bringing that up to Matt. I don't know if that happens in the first episode that she says that to Matt.
It does. So like here's the thing, right? Is that all the stuff with Luke is they're going so far out of their way to frame him as creepy because none of the facts make him seem creepy.
Right, exactly. That's true.
Like he's directing this movie and it's like, okay, like I that is not my kind of movie, but it's like, okay, here we go. And they're just like doing all these like hyper close-ups and having him like right by the bed to make him seem creepy. But then like when he talks to her, he's like, hey, you know, like every conversation they've had, like he's not subtle about wanting to date her in that he literally says, yes, I would like to date you. Like, it's just like very upfront, very like, Is that okay? Can we do that? If we can't, that's fine. I understand we're both adults. And then also he's like, but also I'm your friend and I think this person is being abusive to you and I want to give you advice about that. Yeah. And that's just a good thing to do.
Right.
This is Aaron Sorkin giving himself therapy for breaking up for his breakup with Kristen Chenoweth, where it's like, maybe the other guy was right. Maybe I'm the bad guy.
Yeah, but also the other guy's a jerk. I don't like him. Like he's still creepy.
But he's a gross man. You have to know he's gross. You guys, he's a film director.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember even where this concludes. Is the part where Matt reads in episode 1?
No.
Okay.
Well, we're skipping over the funniest part of the plot, which is when they show up, Matt is like, yeah, I paid to have this dinner with you. I tied with Luke. And Harriet's like, what? Luke isn't here. And then it turns out that Luke S5858 is a kid who's like a 15-year-old professional snowboarder who's just really rich and is Luke-esque because it's Luke Skywalker. And there's this moment where he's like, yeah, Luke Skywalker. And he's like in 58, and then Matt mutters to himself like, "Is he dressed as Skywalker?"
This is Skywalker Ranch. Like, you just know that Matt has just had that in his pocket for his whole childhood. It's like, yep, I know where Skywalker Ranch is. Shit, that guy looks like MySpace. That guy is never shout never. That guy is MySpace embodied. I loved him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, basically they conclude like, okay, I guess we'll both kind of be on this date together. And then there's a moment where they're both sitting with Harriet in between them, and he's like, dude, if we're both gonna be on this date, like we gotta like talk to each other or whatever. And he's like, go away. Like, stop being in this plot.
Yeah.
I love that kid. But yeah, this concludes about the way I expected.
So, okay, 6, what do you think happens?
With Harriet and Matt.
They have a big fight, and Harry and Matt leaves all sulky as sad music plays.
Again, pretty
broadly correct. So what ends up happening is their fight kind of goes a lot of different places, as fights like this do, where really the fight is as much about figuring out what the fight is about as it is about the thing that it's about, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're fighting. Harriet has this great line where she basically says like, so what did you expect was going to happen, Matt?
Yeah.
I got that in the first, and it is, he does come across as a pretty huge creep there.
And then in the second one, she like doubles down on that by saying that these are acts of cruelty disguised as cuteness.
Beautiful.
Which is like, yeah, that's true. He's sort of wanting to keep her and keep her attention. And she basically says like, I have been around Luke and I like him and I've thought about having sex with him and how I had sex with him before. And then I stop myself because I feel like I'm cheating on you, but I'm not with you. We're not together. So like, that's fucked up. And then Matt's like, you thought about having sex with him? What? You thought about having sex with him?
And she's like, yeah, I have.
And then the conversation goes to like, you had sex with Jeannie. And Matt again brushes that off and is like, I didn't have sex with Jeannie because she was your friend. I had sex with her because she's mine. Matt, no.
No, stop, Matt.
This is not a defensible position. You can't be upset that Harriet has thought about having sex with another guy. Meanwhile, you had sex many times with like her closest female friend, ostensibly, on the show. It like they keep glossing over that. And when that's brought up, Matt is like, I know what this fight's really about. It's the fact that I didn't propose. And Harriet's like, yeah, it is. No, it's not.
No, it's not. That's not what you guys broke up.
No, it's not about that.
Oh, Aaron, you need to go to real therapy. Aaron. You cannot. Aaron, stop writing.
It's not about that.
A-Rod. This ain't it.
Was it A-Rod in real life, the baseball player? No. You're just being silly.
I'm just being silly.
Okay, great.
I don't like the Yankees, but Alex Rodriguez is fine. I have no beef with it.
He's married to J-Lo, yeah.
All-star player.
What's the deal with the Wendy stuff? Real briefly, like little capper on this episode.
So what ends up happening is Harriet basically says like, I've thought about having sex with Luke, and she says that to him like right backstage when he's about to read his speech. And then he goes out and he tries to do it. He totally tanks and can't. He mixes up his words. He stumbles. He tries to stop and start a bunch of times. Then he just gives up and he says, here's Harriet Hayes. And he totally botches it and lets her down.
Awful. It's kind of uncomfortable, but also like...
in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
So then he's embarrassed. So he sticks around and just like drinks his sorrows away as they're packing up the dinner. And then... what's her name again?
Wendy.
Do you remember Wendy, 6?
Nope.
The lady that he tried to get the stiletto boot from?
The bombshell babies.
Oh, sure. Okay.
She was at the dinner, and she's like, hey, Matt, what's up? And they hang out, and then
this literally ends the episode.
She brings him back to the studio, to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're hanging out in his office, and he's like super drunk, but it's Thursday night, so he's trying to write stuff. And then it turns into, there's this moment where he's talking about the thing with Harriet, and he's like, I could have fixed it, could have been better, I could be better. And then out of nowhere, he's like Wendy, I could be better this time. And she's like, yeah, you should talk to Harriet again. And he's like, no, you and me, I could be better this time.
Shut up.
And he like tries to, huh?
That's what it was. I kind of missed this ending because I was falling asleep.
Yeah, he tries to be like, let you and me get back together. And she says like, no, Matt, I'm engaged. And then she gets a call from her fiance, and it's like, hey baby, what's up? And then the stupidest, oh God, this boiled my blood. She's like, it'll work out, Matt. And part of the thing is that he messed up the punchline of the joke for his speech. So she's at the door and she's like, and hey, you'll get that punchline. And then the music kicks in and we see the montage of everybody at the end of the episode. Sucks. Stupid,
I want to die.
Stupid.
Great.
Stupid. It sucks.
Yeah, it's
so
bad.
bad.
I was worried for a minute there that Wendy was going to become that was going to become plotline, but we know that Harry and Matt are going to get together at the end of this. Like, what are you doing, guys?
They're destined for each other.
They're simply exactly.
Right.
Even though, oh my God, it keeps grossing me out whenever I remember that it's real life because Kristen Chenoweth doesn't get back with Sorkin. Ugh. Can we talk about the best plotline and call it a day, please?
Yeah,
that sounds great to me.
Let's talk about Cal. Let's talk about Cal, baby. So Cal doesn't usually get full plot lines to himself, but this episode, Timothy Busfield really carries both the performance of Cal and like the directing of all these scenes because they are using they hired a snake handler to bring a bunch of vipers to the set and to manage these like 24 vipers while they do a PlayStation 3 commercial parody, which is hysterical because 2007. I love it. And in the parody, they have all these snakes moving around on the PlayStation, and it's like, but Monster Killer 69 is coming out. That's like the joke of the sketch. And when the snake handler, what is his name? It's like, he has a funny name. It's like Busey or something like that.
Yeah, Gary Busey.
Yeah, it's Gary Busey. And he's really funny because he's like completely stoic, just this like, yep, I'm the guy with the snakes and you're Cal and you're going to pay me for them, right? Anyways, these are my snakes. I love my snakes. He's the best. And he's like, there are 23 snakes here. I brought 24. You have a snake loose in your studio somewhere. Where could it have gone? It can only have gone under the stage because there's grates there. Oh no, what's going to go on? And then they're trying to find it. They can't find the snake because it's under the whole stage and they can't get a person under there. So he's like, well, let's get a ferret. And so they get a ferret and they send the ferret down. The ferret gets stuck in the grates. They're like, oh no, what are we going to do about the ferret? And then he's like, well, we can get it. What is it? He's like, get a wolf?
Coyote.
We'll get a coyote. The coyote will eat the ferret. And Majan, you made a great point in your notes about how this plotline feels like in a more clever show, like it could be some sort of metaphor for like the way that you like fix problems with other problems, and how a lot of this show is that.
Mm-hmm. It kind of feels like that's what it's going for, I think, because that first half ends on Cal looking into the hole and saying like, what goes in after the coyote?
Yeah, great line, actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what the episodes are trying to get at. Sort of like when you try to chase a bad plan with a worse plan, you're just going to make things worse overall. Yeah.
And it's literally under the stage. Like the stage is this sort of like, there's plenty of metaphor you can read into this, but ultimately it's a very goofy plot that gives Cal an opportunity to play around like comedically with the snake handler.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So 6, do you think that they find the snake?
Yeah, I think the snake. I mean, I'm gonna play it completely realistic, right?
Sure.
This is not how it would go. This is not how Sorkin writes. How Sorkin's gonna write is that the snake actually solves somebody's problem in some stupid way. But in the realistic version, it's like, oh, it's really warm down there, and so the snake's just hanging out because snakes are cold-blooded.
Well, yeah, they never say that, but the snake is hanging out down there. and they put a camera down there, and or they call it a lipstick camera or something. And they're like, oh, the snake is
cameras.
The snake is not dead. But it escalates in part 2 because the guy realizes that he has to call whatever they're like the ethical treatment of animals people.
Yeah, like
not
the
PETA.
Animal or the Humane Society.
Humane Society, yeah. And he's like, well, we have to call them because once you bring a coyote in here, that's an animal, and now it's being considered used on set. And if they come here, it's like basically like he calls the cops on Cal. Cal's freaking out because it's been going. I love the implication of like, when he goes up to the roof and they're like, Cal, how long has the snake been in there? And he's like, since Tuesday. He's like, Cal, it's Thursday. There's just been a snake for 2 days. Cal attempts damage control and tells the entire cast and crew that it's mold, which makes them worry more. And we learned that the funny writer guy is actually really neurotic. And he's like, guys, mold can kill instantly. If we breathe in any mold, we're going to die. He's like, he can't tell them it's not mold because he's trapped in his own lie. And so he puts everybody in the writer's room and he's like, just leave. In an hour, we'll be fine. The lady comes, like the police lady, the Humane Society lady comes, and she's like, you're going to get fined a ton because this is just horrible mistreatment of animals. You need to get rid of the snake. You need to get rid of everything. Rip up the floorboards of the stage, which really only matters because the final montage we're talking about, where everyone's kind of like ending their plot in a happy place, is also scored to some nice music while construction dudes are physically breaking Studio 60 up.
With pickaxes.
It's kind of a cool shot. It's like slow-mo, like pickaxes breaking open a stage.
So it's a bad ending then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like visual. It's just visually cool. They break up the stage and then presumably they find the snake.
But
Because see, it's a symbol for Matt's life falling apart.
But there's no explanation as to why the snake is there?
No, there was a snake explanation because it got loose.
That's not... I mean, like, they send the ferret down, but then the ferret doesn't respond to their whistle.
Yep.
And, like, that's never answered. It just doesn't.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
and then they have to send a coyote to get the ferret.
Yeah, the coyote goes down there. And then what they find out is the animals have, like, arranged themselves in such a way where now they can see the snake, but the coyote won't leave because the snake's in the way. And the ferret is like on the other side or something like that.
It's like those like logic problems on the SATs that are like,
like with the boat,
get them across the river.
You have to bring a coyote, a snake, and a thing across on a boat, and it's just that.
Okay. If the delivery is good, I buy it. But hearing it in the abstract, that sounds like they did not stick the landing.
It stays fun because Cal's fun, and the dude is so oblivious to how incompetent he is. It's still.
I love it. I love it. And I said this on the chats room when they introduce a character to one of the Sorkin shows who isn't a Sorkin type, and they're just a dude who's like a contractor who's like, I bring animals to like TV sets. Those are my favorite characters.
Yeah,
those are just the best.
Yeah, on the 2 days after the snake has gone down there, and he's like, it's no good. We'll have to go get the ferret. It's going to be another $6,000 because you got to buy a new snake. And Cal's like, I'm not doing that. He's like, okay, I'm sure it'll leave eventually.
How long you got?
or when he, again, this is exactly how they played it for, but they did a good job where he shows up and Cal's like, so these are not like poisonous snakes. He's like, no, they'll kill you.
If you move at all, they will kill you.
Yeah,
and he like shows him like bite marks on his finger.
It's so good.
It's very funny.
Yeah, their back and forth is what sells this plot and what makes it so entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think you can definitely read a sort of like easy metaphor for like the way that people self-sabotage, and that being what a lot of Studio 60 is about. And I think this is just fun because, again, like Magellan was telling us earlier, like Cal just needs more plots. Cal is that guy, like Timothy Busfield's funny. He brings a levity to the show, and he's one of the people who actually works on the production. Like, he's not just he doesn't have any romances. I think he's married. Like, his like personal life is fine. I don't need more personal life stuff. I want like people stressing about the production. Like him dealing with the random veteran that comes onto the episode, which is almost a fun plot and then gets really stupid. Bevo is the name of the snake handler. They're like, "What's up, Bevo?" And then he talks to the animal lady, and she's like, "What's up, Bevo?" And he's like, "How you doing, Marge?" She's like, "Good." Like they have history together. It's great. Ugh.
I do also like Danny on the roof being like, "Wait. That was the animal. We've got a snake loose."
I'm smart.
It's fun in the second episode when Cal gets up there and he's like, you didn't think I'd figure it out, did you? How much money are you spending on this thing?
He's like,
It's a fun interaction.
yeah, and they do the whole breakdown of like 30,000. Like, how much would it have cost if we filmed offsite? 20,000. How much is it going to cost? Or no, like 20,000 here, 30,000 off. And he's like, how much will it cost now that we have to spend all this money? And he's like, about 200,000. He's like, huh. That's a lot of money. But to us, that's not a lot of money because we work for a TV network. It's great. But that basically covers the episodes. And yeah, I think there was a lot of fun stuff to be had in here. I just don't really think this needed to be 2 parts. I think like 1.5 parts would have been fine.
Yeah, I agree. I have some stray notes from across the episodes. There's this gross moment before Danny goes to apologize to Jordan where Matt says, you know, you don't have anything to apologize for, right? And it's like, Matt, no. Don't give advice.
Stop, Matt.
Don't give advice, sir. Stop it. Let's see. We talked about how the Kim Tom stuff is gross, but like the lines themselves are really icky and obvious. Where she's like, what's the age for, or no, Tom's like, you're 20,
he says
right?
the age to drink here is 21 in California, and you're 20. I need to tell you that so that you know that it's okay. It's bad that you're drinking.
Yeah. And then she says, what's the age for taking you back to my hotel room and dancing for you? Which is gross. And then Simon is like, 18. Which is disgusting. And then Tom later tries to be like, let's talk about you and the viola. And she says, let's talk about you and your cute ass. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Put on the cuffs. Let's go to jail.
Put them on, Aaron.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. You're
Put
going
them
away
on.
for a while. I did like this idea. They dropped this whole thread, but the thing with the preview for the next episode with Masaoka where Harriet does the dolphin voice.
Yeah.
But it's like a thing that there isn't a sketch written for it yet, so Matt's like stressed about it. And then Danny,
people online are talking about the sketch, but there is no sketch.
Right. But then that's like not a focus of the episode at all. And then Danny tries to yell at Jordan about it and is like, why did you air that promo? And she's like, it was just funny. And he's like, this is just a part of the whole one sheet world, which I thought that was kind of an interesting thing for Danny to be angry about, that we live in a world that's all about like, just give me a cool pitch and we'll like write the movie later, or we'll write the sketch later. And it doesn't matter if it's good as long as it sells.
Mm-hmm. Danny successfully like realizing how news media has gone in the last 10 years.
Yeah. But also like, that's something Jordan agrees with. So there could have been something interesting in that conversation, but they just bring it up and then don't talk about it anymore. And that whole thread is dropped. But I was curious about it, I guess. Matt uses the R word in episode 2.
I didn't even bother commenting on it. It's 07. It sucks.
Yeah.
That he can get on a network.
Yeah. I was very amused that the animal handler guy said that the coyote's first role was on the X-Files. And he's been working steadily since then. And then Cal leans in to talk to the coyote and he says, you don't scare me. And then it growls. And he says, okay, you do. That was hubris. Yeah.
Cal's so good.
Yeah.
Give me the Cal show. Just give me like a supercut of the Cal scenes.
I would watch that.
I mean, you really just can't do, like writer and producer. You could do the two sides of the story, and they just don't.
It'd be easy, beautiful, love it.
I saw a sign for the first time in the writer's room up over the door that says skits under construction.
Yeah, the set design that they actually have on this program are fun.
Yeah. And then I was really annoyed by the line when Simon's talking to Darius about writing, and he says, hey, rule number 1 of writing rules.
Yeah. Cute. Silly. It's a writer line.
Yeah, maybe that's a real thing, but it felt dumb. But that's everything I have, I think.
The only thing I have is about the preview for the next episode. So can you do me a favor and tell me what we're watching next time on Studio 60 in the SunsetChatz?
I would love to do that. And then you're going to tell us how the preview sold it?
Yes.
That sounds amazing. Okay, so next time on Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz, we're watching 2 more episodes of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. They are episodes 15 and 16. The first is episode 15, The Friday Night Slaughter. Matt remembers how he and Harriet first met.
So is that all it says?
Yep.
The preview is basically a lot of like, and next time on Studio 60, we're going back to the beginning. Hi, it's like when Harriet met Maddie. They like do a Harry Met Sally thing, and then it's like him looking fresh-faced and young, but not really, because it's clearly the same time of acting. And it's like them being like, "Hi, I'm Harriet. I'm Matt." It's like so.
Stupid.
Just it tries to be like really, really sappy with it.
Stupid. Mm-hmm. And then the second episode that we're watching is episode 16, 4 a.m. Miracle. On a Wednesday night, Matt is stuck with writer's block.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so that'll be cool.
That one, from what I've read about it, is also bad. Or has some yucky stuff in it. We'll find out. We'll discover
Cool.
it.
I definitely remember having watched The Friday Night Slaughter. I don't know if I've seen 4 a.m. Miracle. At some point along the way, I will have stopped watching Studio 60 the last time I watched it, but I am still not sure where it was.
You keep saying that.
I know. I know I didn't see the whole thing, but yeah.
We get to the last one. He's like, so I definitely have seen this one, but I haven't seen... Wait, hold on. They didn't make more of this. But yeah, that brings us to everybody's favorite segment. It's the plug zone. Plug your stuff, please. I'm going to start by plugging the show, chatspod@gmail.com. I'm just going right into it, baby. CHATZPOD@gmail.com if you have emails for the podcast. These are being recorded well in advance of release. So if you do send an email in, we will read it on the next week's episode in a recorded post segment between, I don't know, we'll figure it out. At ChatSpot on Twitter. Please rate us on iTunes. And most importantly, check out patreon.com/chatspot, where we have all sorts of bonus content at what I think is a very reasonable price. Every month, you get access to bonus shows that are mostly me and Magellan talking about TV and its various forms and watching films. It's great. I love it. Give me the chatsums, kids. Please feed me your chatsums. Six, you go first.
You can find me on Twitter at 6detmar.
Yes, at
so,
6detmar. Yep.
My chatsum for this week is sports.
Yeah, it's baseball, baby.
Yeah, it's baseball week over at Scanline Media by weird happenstance, and so I am going to do a chatsum on the Dorktown SB Nation video series on the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, that's so good.
It's been doing the rounds, but yeah, it's a series of 6 videos about basically the history of the Seattle Mariners from their start to current day, and sort of it's a team that has a very weird and complicated history of strange things, and is helped by the fact that baseball is a very weird sport.
Yeah. And you did some writing about baseball recently. I don't know how long ago that'll have been, but I can try to throw a link into the episode when this comes out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I like baseball a lot, and the best thing about baseball is once you get over the concept of baseball and just get to how strange it is.
Yeah, heck yeah. And also, arcade baseball is for chumps.
It is. That's true.
We like sports and we don't care who knows. Football.
Golf. But John, what's your chat?
Oh boy, I don't know. Give me a second. I don't know.
Give me the next word that comes to your head.
You know what? I've been watching more and more videos from this one YouTube channel called The Dodo, and they just do cute animal videos. So
I respect it.
Watch those. They're pretty cute.
DODO?
Yeah, like the animal, the dodo.
Great.
Dodo.
Dodo. All three of us are doing YouTube stuff this week. That's fun. Mine is the aforementioned YouTube channel Renegade Cut, which I've talked plenty on here about, like different film and TV like video essayists. Renegade Cut is unique in that he specifically focuses on like leftist analysis of television and film, like with a lot of historical evidence and different perspectives, and like kind of analyzing how films reflect the times that they came out, like how a lot of slasher films reflected like the gay panic of the Reagan era, or how post 9/11 action movies are about that stuff, or all sorts of stuff. So his channel is really great. And again, my favorite video of his from recently is his video about neoliberalism and SNL, which you can just find by typing in like Renegade Cut neoliberalism. Really good stuff and very much worth your time. And thank you both to Six and Magellan for being the two rocks to my one hard place. Thank you, listener, very much for listening to this episode of Studio 60 on the Sunset Chats. Let's restart the clock.
Thank you, folks, for listening to that episode of Studio 60 on the Sunset Chats. And thank you to Six for being on this season. It's been so fun listening back to these and hearing the dynamic that Six brings. And this was a really fun experiment in doing TV rewatch and discussion a little bit differently this time around. Anyway, you heard most of the plugs there at the end of the episode, but I wanted to add some additional things. In the time since we recorded that episode, we have launched a Twitch channel where we're streaming occasionally. So far, it's been every other week or so, which we might stay consistent with. We haven't officially said that that's our cadence, but that seems to be when we feel like doing it so far. Most recently, we streamed us playing some random GameCube games, including Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg as the main attraction, following that up with some Star Fox Assault and some Monkey Ball. So if you want to check out us playing just like random games from the aughts, that's what we were doing there. And my love of the GameCube means that almost certainly we will do a GameCube potpourri stream sometime soon again. Other than that, I wanted to let you know what's on the Patreon right now. So yesterday we released a pilot chats where we covered Watchmen and Chernobyl, two miniseries from 2019, as we're trying to figure out which miniseries we want to do for our season 11. I think we had some pretty interesting discussions about both of those, and you should tune in on the Patreon to have a listen. And then we have a poll for the month of March. Today is the last day to vote on that, so that you can decide what is the, of all the options that have lost in polls over the course of the past year, which is our first year doing polls, of all those options, which one is the one that's going to be saved from the ashes and make it onto the Patreon. So far, it looks like a commentary of RoboCop is winning, so that could be exciting. I don't know. I've never seen it. I know Red Foreman's in it, so that's something. Other than that, folks, thank you again so much for listening and supporting the show. Please consider sharing the show with someone, sending them a link, telling them about it, leaving us a review, all of those things that just help us to bring more people to the community. Other than that, have a wonderful week and make sure to eat your vegetables, which in this case means watching Studio 60. Until then, see you later.